Just to repeat, we're just giving people a minute or two to log in before we begin. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Staunton. I'm the British Consul General based in Atlanta. Some of you might be asking, what is a Consul General? So in shorthand, I'm the British government's representative in Atlanta, covering the 6 southeast states of the United States. Over the last decade, the British Consulate here has been very active in promoting LGBTQ plus rights. Obviously, we participated for the last 7 years in the Atlanta Pride Festival, and we've worked with Out in Film for the last couple of years. This is part of the UK government's agenda to speak up for our values and to speak up for rights, including in countries such as the United States. So, if anything, it's a little bit of our promotional activity around being a force for good as the United Kingdom, trying to affect change and trying to provide that framework for discussions about equivalency of rights and ensuring that people have the same opportunities. So it's a pleasure to be working with the Out on Film Festival yet again. And Craig and Jim are very influential, and I think they deserve a huge element of praise for going virtual this year. It can't have been easy to move from a film festival where people get together to one where everybody is now doing it virtual. But I'm told it has been a rip-roaring success, and I'm sure they will try and keep some of that virtual element in future film festivals because it allows everybody to participate. So today we have 5 UK filmmakers, and I mean filmmakers based in the United Kingdom, which shows the importance of the creative sector within the United Kingdom. Important because of the economic value, but also because it carries narratives that are fundamental to communities across the United Kingdom. So when we talk about diversity and diversity around LGBTQ+, that's important. It's really at the centre of our dialogue in the United Kingdom. It's a lively dialogue, and we as the government want to promote that. But just today, if you look at diversity across the United Kingdom, we have a filmmaker who has made a film in the Welsh language, and it also reflects this festival and these 5 filmmakers, all parts of the United Kingdom. So we're active from Wales to Glasgow to Belfast to London to Cornwall, and there's obviously an international dimension. So I'm so excited to be joining today. And the links between the creative sector of the United Kingdom and the southeast of the United States are very, very positive. Blackhall Studios, which has produced a lot of international blockbusters, is looking to establish a studios in Reading in the United Kingdom, and we've been helping this. But the role of government isn't to get in the way. I mentioned earlier that this is about, yes, supporting the creative sector. This is about promoting British exports of our film excellence and about GDP. But actually, it's important about ensuring that we are supporting the fabric of our society as we go through societal change. So it's great to be here today. And as I said, I'm going to get out of the way and hand back over to Craig, who will take you through the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And I want to thank all of you, thank Andrew and everyone at the British Consulate General in Atlanta for bringing us together to have this conversation today, which I think is really an important one to have. We just completed Out on Film for this year. And as Andrew said, we did go virtual for this year. And it was successful, and we didn't know what to expect. And I don't think any of the filmmakers knew what to expect, as this was all new territory for all of us. And so, I'm very proud to be part of this community. I'm very excited that these 5 filmmakers who screened with us at Out on Film this year are here today to talk more about their work, about their films, about their voices, and really, to showcase queer stories and queer storytellers at a time when our voices do need to be heard and our stories need to be told. And so what I'd like to do as we start out is to have our filmmakers come present on the screen, and I'd like to go around and have each of you introduce yourselves, your film, and just say something just briefly about your film, and then what we'll do is kind of get into a discussion more in depth about what your films mean, what your stories are. And so I'd like to start with you, if you want to introduce yourself and your film.
Yeah, so my name's Eva. I made a film called Cwch, which is in Welsh. It means leaf boat, and it's about two women who are falling in love, and it's kind of about the anxiety of falling in love. And it's an animation, so magical things happen, and they create a boat out of the leaf and go on an adventure.
Excellent, and thank you for joining us. And Mike, how about you next? Mike Beddoes?
Hi, yeah, Beddoes.
Sorry?
I'm Mike Beddoes. No worries. I'm a filmmaker based in the UK in London, and I directed a film called Sequins, which is set in the seaside resort of Blackpool. It's set in the 1990s, and it's about a teenager who is trying to find his place in the world and find his people via a burning desire to become a drag queen.
As we all did in the 90s. Thank you. And Mike, how about you?
Hi, yeah, I'm originally Slovenian, but I've been living in London for 5 years now, and I directed and edited a short film called My Dad Marie, which is about Charlie, who's this 17-year-old kid who is basically trying to accept his father transitioning into Marie, into a woman.
Excellent. And Eamon?
Hi everyone, I'm an Australian. I was living in London, now I'm based in DC for the moment, and I made a documentary called Steelers, the World's First Gay Rugby Club, which is what it says on the tin, and it's about a London-based club that I used to play for.
And Jamie?
Hello, yep, I'm Jamie. Made a film called Wings. It's about two women who met during the Second World War as land girls. And then when the husbands returned back from war, they had to go back to normal life, and then they re-find themselves again back during their retirement age, in a nutshell.
All right. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today and talking about your films. And I do want to go into a little bit of detail with all of them. One of the things that has struck me over the years that I've been doing this, which is about 11, 12 years now with Out on Film, is kind of looking at the evolution of queer storytelling and the stories that are being told in the community and about the community. And one of the things that struck me with all of your films is that they're all about people's journeys, and journeys to find love, journeys to find themselves, journeys to find where they belong in the world. And told from very different perspectives, which I think is, I think for our audiences in particular was very interesting and very refreshing. And so I kind of let's just always start where we should start and talk about love. And so I wanted to start with you. You tell this story about these women in love through animation, and tell us a little bit about kind of how you came to tell this story using this medium.
So like through the medium of animation?
Yes.
Yeah, I did start writing the story and realized that it's very about sort of an emotional journey that they go on through, but I could have done it like through live action, but I wanted to make it more like magical and surreal and have like sea monsters in it, and everything is like a metaphor for what they are going through sort of emotionally about the fear of falling in love kind of thing.
And as you kind of go through and start to tell this story, how, through your process, how does this unfold using this metaphor of the leaf and kind of representing it graphically?
Yeah, so the idea is that they're kind of, you have to create your own love and your own relationship. And so they're kind of picking stuff out of that they can reach, kind of thing, putting it all together to make a makeshift boat. And yeah, the threat is that the leaf isn't strong enough and stuff, and you have to build it strong enough to weather all the storms and see if it will actually last and things. Yeah.
So it's a lot about the fragility of this budding relationship, and they can carry through, weather the storm, take the sea monster. And so kind of, Jamie, you tell kind of a similar story about women in love. And you decide to tell most of it without dialogue. Tell us a little bit about how you came to tell this story, and tell it the way that you did, through mostly silent, without dialogue.
Yeah, so one of the big influences for it was actually the introduction to the film Up. You know, you see these two, like one of the most beautiful and sort of heart-wrenching stories is told in like a few minutes by a really cute animation. And I'd done a lot of features with a lot of dialogue, and I thought, you know what, I want to do something that in theory should be easier, of ended up being way more complex than that. But I think, you know, everybody recognizes and has felt love and loss. And so when you can tap into them emotions, it doesn't matter if you're a female or male, whether you're a lesbian or gay or straight or whatever, you can still recognize them emotions, and you know what them emotions are like. So for me, I wanted to just play on that idea of just using imagery and the cinematography and the music and just that natural raw emotion that we all feel inside of us to drive it, rather than having to explain everything with text, really.
And you said, how much harder is it to do things for your actors, for you as a director? I mean, when you don't have dialogue, I mean, how much more difficult is it to kind of bring this together?
I mean, sometimes if you've got a really, really good script and it's really good dialogue, you can have a quite simplistic looking like background. The production design doesn't always have to lead, because sometimes the story is really strong and you can just kind of do it a bit handheld, keep it kind of easy, and the story carries it. Something like this, it's very visual, so you had to have a huge amount of, you know, ownership on the production design and get the art direction right and get the costumes right and get the colors right, and cinematography had to be top. So finding them locations and setting that all up and doing all that historical research and getting all them props dated right, etc., was a massive bit of the storytelling, because it's all going to be visual storytelling. And just having simple stuff like having good quality camera equipment and having the right lenses and having the right grip material so we can get the movements we wanted and stuff ended up being a lot more work than I sort of originally thought. Oh, I'll just do something a bit easier. So yeah, it was a huge effort. And then post-production as well. Like, we had to, you know, get a really good score. We couldn't just download something off of you know, some sort of sound library. We had to get it scored and properly sound designed, and we had an original soundtrack and properly color graded, and yeah, just mammoth.
And so as we move from these stories that are about love and relationships, we move into their journeys about kind of finding yourself and that journey of identity and self-discovery and where we belong in the world. And Mike, you and Mike both kind of explore this through teenagers, and really looking at kind of a perspective of the world and how you find yourself in the world, through this lens. And so, Mike, tell us a little bit about how you came to tell this story through this perspective, and kind of what made you decide to tell this story now.
I think telling it now when it's a period piece, I think the reason to tell it now is because actually it's not about whether it was now or we told it a few years ago. Actually, I think the universal truth is when we hit that point of late adolescence, it's where we're making the first sort of huge lessons into adulthood about who we are as people. And that can be sexuality, it can be sexual, it can be career-based, education-based. It's the 17, 18, and 19 when you move from school teaching and living with your parents and being basically an older child in terms of how you're treated by adults, to looking to getting your first job or learning to drive or going to university. You're taking those first steps into adulthood with training wheels. So that's the point in which we meet Paul, and that's why we chose to put it there. It's that point in which you go, I feel something about myself, and I think that is who I am, but I'm not sure. And there's the confusion of adolescence as well. So many influences and trying to fit in with others while trying to find yourself, pulling you in all directions. So yeah, I think the reason for being 17 is that age. Now, things have changed for people that age now because of either for worse, worse in terms of cyberbullying and people being able to tell you that you're wrong and what you're about is not correct, or for the positive reasons of being an interconnected as one planet and being able to reach out and find your people. So there is a reason why it is a period piece, and that's Amy, the writer, wanted to remove technology, remove access to Facebook, and have it that this kid feeling lost couldn't flick on the TV and find RuPaul's Drag Race and start to feel like, well, there's a whole talent show about it. They had to feel isolated, and they will also have to be forced to go out into the world to do their research, to find out about this world rather than Google.
One of the interesting things that you did in this film was this kind of both being able to find your family when he goes and finds Mimi and kind of gets taken in by this tribe, but also he's still as part of his original family and trying to find his way and keep that family. So talk a little bit about, you bring these two together, and it doesn't seem as if he's having to make a choice between families, which I thought was really pretty interesting.
No, it's weird. Actually, it's weird. I think when we were developing the script, again, it was written by a writer called Amy Clark. There were drafts and versions where it was more of a sort of split ending, where there is that I can do anything. I can do this amazing performance. I'm never really going to change my dad's mind or change my family's mind. And actually, we were doing a read through with some people and just went, not every, but we've been to a lot of festivals where you see either the LGBTQ QIA plus block, or we went to queer film festivals, and you go, oh my God, 80% of the program had such depressing endings. If I was at that point in my life where I'm scared to be part of the queer community, you would leave those screenings with the fear of God put into you, or that nothing's ever going to be fine. So we went for the happy ending, but we didn't, as I said, go full Richard Curtis. Like, it was never going to be an ending where the dad pulled out a sign that says, "That's my boy." Like, that's too much. It was just the smallest of smiles on the dad's face of, I don't hate this. And I don't hate this, I think, is the perfect building block. That's what you want. And after the film ends, you could imagine that the characters have something to begin a journey, rather than completing the journey in 15 minutes, which it would feel forced and rushed. And yeah, like you said, it's about, I think the message we wanted was he doesn't leave our films having it all, but the potential is there for a positive outcome for him.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that was the point. And like you said, it's a very small moment where the father's like, "I'm not leaving, but I'm not joining PFLAG either."
Yeah.
You know, it's a lovely moment where you do end on a hopeful note. And you kind of do somewhat of the same in telling this story through my dad Marie through the eyes of his son or her son. Um, and tell us a little bit about how you chose this perspective to tell this particular story about how this family is trying to stay together.
Yeah, I think what Mike just said like really drives the whole idea home, just of making a film that's not too heavy to watch and kind of making something that people would love to see. I'm sorry, I'm very self-conscious of all the videos, so I'm looking at it. I'll try to focus on the camera, just ignore myself. So I didn't write the film. It was written by Rory. I just kind of rewritten it, certain things and scenes, and just chopped it down quite significantly. But yeah, I had, when I was approaching it to direct it, I was thinking like what was my way in. It was quite an issue for me. I felt a bit of a fraud, or like I'm faking it, because I've never had, I never was in such a situation, especially what Marie is going through, transitioning. It's really heavy things. But then I kind of luckily realized that we're actually telling it through the eyes of a 17-year-old kid who doesn't want to confront this thing. And I think we've all been 17-year-olds who were just afraid to confront certain things, probably not as big as Charlie is confronting, but we all were in denial of certain things. So that was basically my way in, and we wanted to make the whole film as more of like a very objective observation of this family. That's also the reason why we didn't use any music, because I think just using music immediately, you push an emotion. You're supposed to be feeling this now, and also all the camera and everything was kind of follows this idea of, here is this family. Observe it. We're just kind of sitting back and seeing it, and we're just observing a tiny part on the timeline. We don't know what's gonna happen after. We don't really know what happened before it, but it's it's just kind of this, a third person view in a life of this family.
I think that one of the beautiful aspects of this film is it wasn't necessarily focused necessarily on Marie's transition, but on her son's, like you said, 17. We've all been 17, and the world is all about me, and it really becomes not really about the transition, but about, do you want me, and who, and what is our relationship now, and who will be my father? And I thought that was really, we don't see that part of a family dynamic in some of these situations, when it really does just boil down to not acceptance, but do you want me? and it becomes in both perspectives. But I thought that was really a beautiful moment when you talk about how life affects everybody in the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. It basically is all the ripples that it causes and everything that takes with it. And we kind of actually, a lot of things that are in this film we discovered as you do, I guess, like while we were filming. We became aware, like the fact that what you just said. Do you want me? Will you have me? And we basically, where we're filming this scene of confrontation that's in the living room, we kind of it just happened. We just couldn't come to the right emotion. It didn't really click. And then we kind of realized that the reason that Charlie is angry, he's not angry at his father, but he's angry at this woman who took over his father. So basically we created this another person that he was angry on, because he wasn't able to just, why, I don't know why I should be able at my father. I understand what's going on, but it just, so then we kind of we kind of came in through that side, so that there's this other woman who's taking this such a strong part of his life away.
And I think when we talk about where we belong and finding where we belong, I mean, Eamon, you really explore this all through Steelers, which is all about where do I belong and do I belong here? And I have to say, I've always kind of said that at my age, I am a proper homosexual and have only ever followed figure skating. And I kind of get excited about rugby, which I just have never done before. I mean, it really is for all of them, the guys on the team and for Nick, who's coaching. I mean, to have this organization and this sport that draws all of these people together to really help them find their place in the world. So how was it? I mean, I know you were part of this club, but what made you kind of stand back and kind of say, I have to tell this story?
Yeah. So I moved from Australia to London about 4 years ago, and I came out, 10, 12 years ago. And in Brisbane, where I sort of was living, I never really connected with the gay scene and the gay people. I didn't really have many friends. And it wasn't until I kind of stumbled across this incredible club in London that by accident that I sort of, for the first time in my life, felt like I found my place where I belonged and felt a part of this amazing community. And it completely changed my life. I met my husband, I met so many friends, and it was just probably the happiest time of my life. And I was looking around at the club, which had 200 active players and about 1,000 past players. So it's this huge community. And I was sort of looking at the other teams in the UK that we would go play against, and I realized that this incredible sport was having this transformative effect on so many people. And no one had done a film or anything on it before, and I'm a TV reporter as my day job. So I thought, there's definitely a story in there. And I just kind of took my camera along. I'd never made a film or a documentary. It was always a dream of mine. And I just sort of started pointing at the camera at my teammates during this tournament, and all this incredible stuff happened. And the 3 people I picked were very honest about their journeys and how rugby had helped change their life. And just been blown away by the reception it's had, because I guess we can all relate to that feeling of looking for that place to belong. And for those of us who've managed to find it, it's just this incredible experience.
And part of what struck me, along with the camaraderie and the family aspects of all of this, is really the open and the honesty that you're able to capture around gender and gender identity, ideas of masculinity. I mean, when we have Drew, who navigates these worlds in much the same way as Mike does in Sequins, and we're looking at these ways in which we're able to express ourselves, and that all of it's okay, and that we embrace that expression, which you even talk a little bit about in the film. Like, you either play rugby or you're a drag queen, and Drew's like, well, screw it, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And also Nick, who talks about the role that gender plays in this sport. So tell us a little bit about how was that intentional, or was that just something that kind of came as you're following these people?
It just kind of came because I think, in cinema and culture, like the gay white male perspective is kind of like this dominant perspective, and and that's my experience. But then when I started sort of interviewing Nick, who's the female coach, and she was telling me these stories about how the referees think she's the water girl, and they go up to the male assistant coach because he must be in charge. And then even as she told this heartbreaking story that I couldn't weave into the film, about how they won this big game and all the players went out and forgot to invite her because they're like, who wants to hang out? She felt like, who wants to hang out with a lesbian if you're a bunch of gay men? And then with Drew, who's this African American or this Black American drag queen, he sort of shared this amazing story about identity and how he got a lot of pushback from the club when he started this drag fundraising show, how some of the more masculine boys in the club were sort of like saying, well, we don't want that image out there that, you know, all gay people are sissies. We're trying to build this image of, you know, we're just like you. But he was saying you can actually be both. You can be whatever you want to be. It's just about being authentic. So it was a real kind of journey for me to go on as a filmmaker as well, to sort of flesh their stories out. And at the end of the day, it was just me with my camera in their hotel rooms doing these interviews. And I think for my next documentary, whatever that is, I think I'll adopt the same approach, because they just were so honest and open when it was just me in the room with them, rather than this big kind of production.
Excellent. When we talk about this idea of belonging, you all also belong to a filmmaking community. You're telling stories. These are the ones that we have here are all queer stories, using different mediums of animation and documentary and shorts and feature. I just want to go around and have each of you talk about kind of what is this production. What is it like? I mean, how do you come to make these films? What are the struggles? I know that, you know, when I talk to all US-based filmmakers, it's always around financing and support, and I'm sure that plays a part in it everywhere. But when you're doing this, how long are your production schedules, and kind of how is it that you go about and you're able to make these films, and what kind of support are you able to get as filmmakers, as queer filmmakers, for these stories? A lot of you have done films and stuff before. Does it get easier? And so if I'll start with you, I mean, I'm assuming that trying to do animation, it takes longer because there's a lot more to it. So tell us a little bit about kind of like how you go about getting this final product to us.
Thanks. So yeah, I was really lucky to get the funding to make the film. It was through a scheme called the Beacons, and it's a Welsh-based funding body, and they usually do live action. So I was the only film in that round that was animation. Yeah, and I did apply the year before, so this was like my second time applying. Yeah, so I was really, really grateful to get to do it, because it was my first film after doing my university degree. And yeah, it took like probably a year in all, like with writing the script and doing edits and everything like that. But the animation took 6 months. So I made 1 minute of animation per month, which is actually quite fast for animation. So yeah, quite long.
And then how about you? I mean, does this, as you're making films, does it ever get easier as an independent filmmaker?
I mean, it gets easier in a sense that you get more confident about it, and also the more things you do, the more you have to show I say a better crew you can get, or more people trust you, I'd say. And it's I haven't done that many. I've done 4 short films so far, but this one, so My Dead Marie, was self-funded. So Dominic, who is the producer, friend of mine, we're together. I was actually his acting coach. We're together at these acting classes, and he said, yeah, I've got this film, and we started talking about it. So we also did crowdfunding. We got some part of it, but mostly it was Dominic funding it, and I believe Rory as well, who is the writer. And that's where it went for it. But yeah, in terms of does it get easier, is well, there's Guillermo del Toro has a very nice saying, which I'm a bit afraid to say now because there's some pretty bad words. But it's basically, he said, making films is like eating a crab sandwich. He says just the better you get, the more bread you get in the sandwich. That's the, and I do subscribe to that. But it's the best thing in the world.
And then, Mike, how about you? What was your production? How long did it take for you all to complete this film, like from inception to finish? And that was for Mike.
Oh, there we go. Everyone's back. So Amy had the idea for the script originally in her teens. So we're talking 20 years ago, after she lived with some were in their early 20s, through their journey of discovering and building a character and finding out things about themselves. So that idea has been around for a long time. And then originally she thought about it as a feature. We redeveloped it as a short, as a proof of concept short, actually, to show that it would work in longer form. And around the same time that we started on it, a documentary, I don't know if it played over there, but it came out in the UK on BBC Three called, I think it was called Diary of a Teenage Drag Queen. And it was a documentary about someone our age from a northern town, not Blackpool, but Sheffield. But we continued on, and then right as we were in the sort of whirring up, it became a West End musical called Everybody's Talking About Jamie. So we both have 17-year-old drag queens from northern towns with an older drag queen mentor trying to find their path in life. They're a musical and they're a lot campier than we are, and we're a sort of drama comedy. But we plowed on, and from that point, I think it took us about 18 months, and that's mainly raising finance. So we did a Kickstarter and raised some money there. We got some funding from a scheme in the UK called the General Film Fund. And they not only gave us cash, but they also gave us connections, free filming equipment from ProCam, bunch of stuff. And then once we got it out, it started to hit the festival scene. And then we heard they were in pre-production on a Jamie feature film, which obviously doesn't affect the short, but in terms of us living in the same ballpark affects us living on as a feature film. So actually what's happened there is our concept, because it is a darker and more sort of dry tone, we have adapted that into an 8-part by 1 hour TV show, Netflixy, Amazon-y shaped concept, which is now out being pitched. So start to finish is, I can't give you a time on it because it's 20 years and counting. It's carrying on. So, but we have had a few road bumps, mainly about something, and it's happened, I think, to many filmmakers, something with not the same, but a similar footing, similar concept, being in the ballpark. Look how many times Hollywood has released 2 things with the same concept within a year of each other. It's just happens. But it's helped to shape it and change what it is now. So.
Excellent. And then, Eamon, for you, you followed this club around. I mean, you were part of it. You followed them around for quite some time through all of this. How were you able to kind of put this together? I mean, what kind of support and financing did you have to get in order to bring all of this to completion?
So I was lucky. I own my own camera equipment from my news work, and I shoot and edit and color grade. So I basically did the whole thing with zero funding and did it all myself. And I only got help right at the end after it got into a film festival to get a professional sound mix and to have a color gradist go over my grade just to make sure it was all technically fine. Even down to making the DCP, I Googled how to do that and tested it in a cinema. So I basically I sort of had lived my life that, don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity. If you really want something, just go out and do it yourself. So everything I learned about how to shoot, how to edit is all off YouTube videos. And I'm pinching myself right now because the film just got distribution in Australia and New Zealand, and it's playing in 50 cinemas, which I can't believe. Something that I edited on my computer in my lounge room. I think for me, what I've learned through this whole process is story is king. If you have a good story that people want to watch and people enjoy, that is what is the most important thing. Because the film it's not like a Netflix documentary where you've got 5 angles and beautiful shallow depth of field, because I couldn't be checking focus while I was interviewing people. But, you know, everyone says it makes them cry, and and they connect with the characters. So, you know, I think, yeah, as an independent filmmaker, it was a challenge for me it was a personal challenge to see whether I could do it. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it's turned out.
Yeah, and congratulations on the distribution. I do want to ask one thing. You're the documentary film here. Everybody else had a narrative that you can control your narrative. You were not able to control your narrative because it's in real time. And I know as we're watching it, you know, we're all wanting them to win this tournament. I mean, and when they don't win, I was like, wait.
I know. Oh God.
Wait a second. Isn't this where we're going for this moment? So what happens when?
Yeah, so for everyone who's watching, they were a really great team, and that's kind of what started me off on this. Was like, there's a good chance they could win this international tournament, and that would be great. And they got right to the end, and they lost at the last, sort of almost the last hurdle. And I was there filming after I'd been standing with this heavy camera on my shoulder for all week, and I was gutted, and I was like, oh no, there goes my story. And I sat on the edit for about a year. I just had this hard drive in a drawer and just left it there because I couldn't bear to look at the footage, and I didn't know how I was going to structure it. And then this Australian rugby player started tweeting all this homophobic stuff. And I was saying to myself, you know what, I've got to finish telling the story, and I've got to work out a clever way of doing that. And so in the end, I sort of came up with the ending that actually it's not about winning. It's about the journey and the team, you know, the camaraderie, and just putting yourself out there and finding that place to belong. That's the story. So it kind of really forced me to work out, what is the story I'm trying to tell? Is it a story about a team winning a tournament, or is it a story about people finding who they are? So, you know, I say in the film, in the end, life often doesn't go how we want it, especially as gay people when we're coming out, but it's about how you deal with that. So, yeah.
And then Jamie, you talked a little bit before about, you know, their production and having to get, you know, the cinematography and the music and everything. So talk to us a little bit about how you were able to bring this production together.
So I think first of all, I sort of come up with a sort of an early concept, which I pitched to Carla, the co-writer, co-producer, and we kind of thought that we really liked the idea, and we hadn't seen anything like this before. So we thought, well, if we haven't seen anything like this, it's probably a good thing to make. And at the time, we kind of assumed that we'd just use the resources that we've got available. So I work for like a production company, and I'm freelance as well. So I've got bits of kit here and there, nothing special. And we just thought, well, whatever happens, give it 6 months and we'll be doing something, whether it's me shooting some cows in the field by myself on a Saturday morning, or whether we manage to pull together some friends and we start doing something, we'll give it a go. And then we decided, what happened? Oh, because of the other films that I've done in the past, I sort of know a few named actors. And so I sort of called one up and was just like, yo, would you like to be in, do this thing? And he was like, yep, sounds great. And then a friend of mine put like a casting out on Twitter, and then Rosie Day responded to it. And so then suddenly we had 2 sort of known stars, and I thought, oh crap, okay, we've got to think about this a bit more seriously now. We can't just me in the field by myself. Got to, you know, they're going to expect a proper set, and then you know, and I've got like a 5-room, a back pocket, and some lint, you know. So then we thought, right, okay, well, we'll have to try and do something proper. And then coming out of the interview with Rosie and Bobby and that, we bumped into Miriam, like literally bumped into her in the street, sort of had the script on us because we'd been to these other meetings and just said, you're literally, this is the sort of thing that this film is about. Can you just have a look and just make sure that it's not bad, or like, you know, like you're not going to say it's horrible and this is like an appropriate sort of film to make. She was like, it's absolutely amazing. Yes, who can I play? Here's my agent, all the rest of it. So I was like, oh no, I was going to do this on my like mobile phone or something, and now I've got like one of the biggest actors in the world wanting to be in it, and I've got no money. So I thought, well, surely it's going to be easy to fund now, right? Like, so spoke to BFI, spoke to Directors UK, that sort of stuff. I was like, oh, easy, we'll just get loads of dollars, and then no one wanted to help. Didn't have any. I was like, what? No one wanted to help. So I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do now? And then we went to Kickstarter, like a lot of people do. Managed to raise about 5,000 or something, which then gets translated into English money. So then it was like 4.5, and then it was like near Christmas, and everyone's money just didn't go through. So we lost another 500 for that. Anyway, we had a little bit of money. We made it. We just coughed up and just used all of our, me and Carl just used all of our savings. And yeah, and then pulled all the favors in, like when you work and network for years, and then at some point you cash all your favors in. So I just like cashed in every favor that I had. And HotCam were fantastic. We'd worked, a previous film I'd done with Carla was about conservations and like saving the rhinos and that sort of stuff, which is how we got Virginia, because she runs the Born Free Foundation. The guy who's now like the manager at HotCam, he sort of helped out as a camera operator on that film. So we sort of said, oh, can you help us with some kit? So they gave us like the Alexa and the Cook lenses and everything else. So yeah, without loads of like contacts and support, we would have been pretty stuffed really. So yeah, but it's ended up all right. Polished up nicely.
It polished up quite nicely, and I think if everybody can indulge us for just a second, I think Jamie and I are going to have a little moment, because for all of us at Out on Film, this was our first year as an Oscar qualifying film festival, which was very exciting for us to be able to promote, queer stories and to put these stories in films forward. And so Wings with Jamie was the first film that we've been able to put into consideration for the Academy Award for Live Action Short. And so, and we just did it, and we're the festival, and it's kind of really thrilling for us. And so Jamie, like as an independent kind of short filmmaker, having done this, what does something like this do for you? And what does it mean?
It's just, the other thing is, it's like, when you get invited to some of these, well, not this one, obviously, but like in like a lot of the festival chats, you get invited to, like, oh, they've invited me along. I might win something. Maybe I'll get a certificate sent to the house or something. But a complete, utter shock to find out about that one. And it's just the most amazing thing, really. Because you always sort of, when you want to be a filmmaker, one of the things is like, oh God, wouldn't it be cool to make a film in Hollywood or make a film at Pinewood Studios or win a BAFTA or an Oscar or something like that. And these are just things that you kind of think probably won't ever happen. But then to be in a situation where it's like, yeah, it's been, now can be put forward for consideration. That's just, I still don't quite understand. It's thrilling for us. Part of what we, are committed to is promoting, filmmakers and giving people on this festival circuit, the opportunity to be seen and to be heard. And so it really is just a thrill for us, not just for that, but for all of you, and to have everybody be able to participate. And especially in a year like this one, which, kind of threw us all, obviously, because nobody, we did not know that we were going to have to convert to, or transition to a completely virtual experience and everything. And I know from all of us who program film festivals and queer film festivals, the filmmaking community has been pretty amazing. And as we've all tried to transition into doing this and to make sure that film still gets seen and that voices are still heard. And so I would say for us, like our proudest moment is just like we were able to do it and just show all of this. But I also, in just some of the time that we have remaining, as you all, these are labors of love. This is your craft and your art. So as we go back around, I just am curious, what about this experience in
releasing the film, completing the films. What's really your proudest moment when you look at kind of what you've done, when you look at your work and you're like, yeah, that was it. And so, Mike, I'll start with you. Kind of what's that moment for you with Sequence?
Us, it was. So we apart from the cast and crew screening, we actually had a run where it got into 3 festivals, and obviously we've completed it, but it never quite feels real when you're the only one who's seen it. So first of all, showing it to the cast and crew was amazing because the response was lovely, and we'd organised, just for budgetary reasons, we'd organised 2 screenings. And the response of people saying, "Oh, can I come? Can I bring this person? Can I bring my agent? Can I bring my manager?" meant that we ended up doing 4 back-to-back screening instead of 2 in the time we had. And then the following week, we found out we got into a festival in Blackpool where we shot it. So we were able to actually also screen it for the volunteers, all the people that even just helped us out, connecting us with the locations, the people who did things on it for nothing. They just wanted to see the film made. They didn't ask for anything. We got to screen in a gorgeous old venue and invite them along and give them comp tickets. So it was that double header of people in London loving it and laying on more screenings and them laughing in the right places, and then going to take it up north to its sort of home, its spiritual home, and seeing it play out in front of local people who know the area and the local sort of LGBTQ IA plus scene up there as well. We had people from the venue that is the Sequin Club, is a real cabaret and gay bar called Sapphires. Like, all the guys from there came down for the screening, and it was really heartwarming. It was my favorite moment.
Excellent. And Ava, how about you? What is your proudest moment, having completed and having the film kind of out there for everybody?
Yeah, I think it's really, really an amazing feeling when someone really connects with it and sort of gets it and sees themselves in it. Yeah, it's been really nice getting lots of like nice messages and comments and stuff. But I haven't had like a screening in person because it kind of came out in like the beginning of lockdown. So I've never seen it in a cinema or anything. So that'll be fun.
Hopefully you'll be able to do that soon. And we do have one question from our audience, and specifically for you. How many unusual pronunciations of the film title have you heard?
A lot. I think even some people who like worked on the film didn't know how to pronounce it. So.
Excellent. And what about you? And for this film, kind of what is your proudest moment?
Well, we got selected to this Academy Award qualifying festival. So yeah, this is pretty big. This is like unimaginable. So yeah, Jamie, I'm really envious. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, good on you. And can I just say, and this is gonna sound really cheesy, but I was listening to all 4 of you now talking, and like all of you are just kind of at the absolute like description of what I always thought of like a filmmaker is, and it feels really, really good to be like in this, in this group. So I'm very honored to be speaking. So I guess this is also one such moment. But to talk, I think very personally, I was just talking to my wife last week, I think, and I said, yeah, I'm actually quite surprised of how far this film came, regarding how simple it really is, like in the story and everything. And she said, well, of all the 3 films you were involved in last year, because I directed 2 and I edited 1, and the other 2 was kind of comedies. She said, this one is actually like the easiest one to watch. I said, okay, that actually is a very good thing to hear. It means that, we did something that we planned to, and we kind of succeeded at it. So yeah, it feels good.
And Eamon, for you, as this was a very personal journey as well for you, with you and Nick and all of the guys. So when you have all of this, like you said, you put it in a drawer, you kind of figured out how it was going to end and what it was about. So as you've completed this journey as a filmmaker, kind of what is your proudest moment?
There's been so many. It's just been this wonderful experience where when I finished the final edit, I started submitting it to film festivals, not really knowing if any would take it. And the first that took it was the BFI Flare, and I was sitting in bed, I think hungover probably, when I just moved to New York, and I got the email saying it had been accepted, and I screamed. So that was amazing. And then it just, all these incredible things kept happening. Like it sold out one of the screenings before tickets even went on sale in the public, and then it got into all these other festivals. But the proudest moment, I think, was when it played in New Zealand, which was the first time because of COVID that it played in an actual cinema. And I got this message from a teenage boy who said he took his parents to the film and watched it. And he said that he was getting a real hard time at school, getting bullied a lot. But the film gave him hope that things do get better. And to me, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. And it's kind of, I wanted to make that film that I wish I had saw when I was struggling growing up. So to hear that was probably one of the best moments.
And then Jamie, as you've kind of pulled all of this together, what is your proudest moment as you kind of take that breath and like, it's out there?
I think the proudest moment really is people like just really loving it. It's had a lot of love, and Wings is an odd one actually, because, and I don't think I've ever actually said this in any interviews yet, but it might have possibly been my final film. I might have tried to do something else. So I think last year or the year before, as a sort of a working filmmaker, I love the fact that I can freelance and make movies like this as almost like, for the love. But obviously you also have to make films to make a living as well. And so sometimes you get hired to make projects and they're a bit naff. And I remember seeing on like YouTube, in one of the comments on one of these movies that, you buy in the shops and that, someone was like, Jamie Weston, don't make any more films. You're rubbish. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't make films anymore. And then I sort of didn't really feel like doing much for like a while. And then I thought, you know what, I want to make one more and just see how it goes. And I'm going to put everything into it, try my hardest, try and prove this person wrong. And if it's still rubbish, then maybe I should just be a plumber or something instead, because like it's not for everyone, right? And I think it does prove that sort of to myself that I should be doing this and telling good stories. And I can if I try.
Yeah.
And I think
you should keep trying. And so like for your last hurrah then, I mean, as you were thinking about it, you pick a story that spans several decades, which can't be easy. And one of our questions from the audience is, for you specifically, was it difficult to tell a story that spanned several decades?
It is. It is because you have to get it right. If these things were just like, I don't know, if it was like set in space, you could make a lot of stuff up and no one would really know stuff. But, we're talking about the Second World War. There's a lot of people, well, maybe not many people are alive now, but, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of research and everyone knows about it. You have to get it right. And these are very sensitive subjects. And, it's a film about two women and I'm a guy, so it's like, and then you have to get all the timings right and, and just get the whole pacing right. It's tricky. There's a certain nuance to it, and also in a way that I'm not saying I don't like. There was also a comment early on when we was in the pre-production before we sort of released it out to say, "Oh, not sure if people get it when sort of Virginia's seen for the first time and comes through and she, as an old lady, and didn't know whether to put like the dates on it and stuff like that." And I was like, no, I think the production design sells it, and even if you don't know what the exact time is, because it's around about 2010, hopefully you'll get the gist and kind of understand that, And so, it was tricky, but I think with a lot of preparation and a lot of research and a lot of conversations with the production designer, art director, costume, makeup, and then cinematographer, I think if everyone comes together, you can just trust that it's gonna work.
Excellent. Well, I think that we are just about at our time. I really, really want to thank all of you for joining us. I mean, this has been a thrill for me, and I'm couldn't be more proud of all of us for being, pulling off a festival, for all of you submitting films and adapting to everything. But really, I want to thank you all for telling these stories. And for putting your art out there, your voices out there, and for touching people, and particularly for the LGBTQ community, who we always say needs to hear our stories and stories about us. And so I want to thank all of you for telling those stories. And I want to thank the British Consulate General here in Atlanta for hosting us this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, depending on where in the world you are. But I want to thank them for hosting us and supporting not just UK film and filmmakers, but seeing the importance of bringing all of these stories across the globe to festivals like ours in Atlanta. So we couldn't be more proud and more delighted to be part of this global community. So for all of us here at Out on Film, I want to thank you and thank the consulate, and thank everybody who joined us for this conversation today. So thank you.